Yeah, well, let's talk about a little bit of U.S. Open action and a little bit of get a little bit of cheese with our wine. So if you guys aren't tennis fans, or if you're at least not women's tennis fans, which I wouldn't blame you.
Please let us get a hate comment for that.
Yeah. There was I'm assuming it was the finals, right? It wasn't just a match, but it was the finals of the U.S. Women's Open final, right? Wasn't it?
I believe so.
Well, anyways, it was Serena Williams, who most people know, even if you're not a tennis fan. She's a pretty popular name, and a younger, wasn't she like half Japanese or something like that?
No. Her opponent, Naomi Osaka, is half Japanese, half Haitian.
That's what I meant. That she was the competitor was like a half Japanese person, and in normal circumstances, so Serena has won many major titles, and a person she was competing against that she had considered Serena Williams to be kind of like one of her heroes. So to go up against to get a major and and compete against the person you've looked up to your whole life, that's an athlete's dream. And in any sport, if you can go up against like the person that you grew up watching and idolizing, that's a big thing. But of course, for Serena Williams ended up making the whole thing about herself right from the get-go. And she got called out on cheating right from the somewhere in the match. And most of these people have coaches, but the rules are that there can't be any sort of signaling back and forth during the match. And Serena Williams' coach was, and to his own admission, he admitted to it, that he was giving her signals during the match. And so she was penalized for that. And instead of just saying like, oh crap, we got caught, and just kept on going, which is what normal athletes do, she decided to become a petulant child and complain and yell to the referee, and kind of made it about herself. And it's like that's bad enough to have that happen in the match. Then she ends up losing a tough set to her opponent, and throws her racket down, which is also a penalty because it's unsportsmanlike conduct. I mean, she broke her racket because she was kind of in a John McEnroe fashion, and
right.
And she lost.
I know, and then like they have like a strange link. Anyways, that goes back a while before like this. I mean, I don't know, like some people are considering this a controversy, but I would definitely. I mean, I guess I might also, but I would make it like I would say that this was like a worrying case.
Well, I think the other thing too is you would think that her opponent would be the one that she's never been there before, and so for her to, whereas like a champion, you think that they would handle themselves a little bit differently, but
more graciously, a little bit, a little bit more, a little bit more, with a little bit more humility.
Exactly. But so anyways,
yeah, if you listen to the audio, like when she's going off on the ref, the umpire, it sounds like someone who's never been there before.
Yeah.
And she's like constantly saying like, oh, how dare you? You're calling my integrity into question. And it's like, well, you were cheating, so.
Yeah. And then so she has the cheating penalty, she has the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, and then she gets a third penalty for shouting at the I don't know like what she either if it was like some obscenity that she shouted at him or whatever, or she said something like also unsportsmanlike, and so she got penalized for that too. So she had 3 penalties on the event, and those penalties racked up, and she lost because of that. Well, she got outplayed. She got outplayed for one, and then these penalties didn't help that. She might have had a better shot had she just kept her mouth shut and played like a professional.
Right, and what is like some of these infractions also carry a monetary penalty as well.
Right. But what I thought was the sad part of it all is I wasn't looking at the the Serena acting like a child problem, but it was more of her opponent who should be one of the biggest moments of her career, her life. Mm-hmm. She not only did she beat the person that she looked up to, mm-hmm. But afterwards that she had to she was booed and ridiculed because Serena for whatever reason the fans were on Serena's side and they were booing her opponent and all this other stuff, and it's and so what should have been her greatest moment is just it's this confusing, horrible, bittersweet
it's completely soured show. And Serena completely stepped on her moment.
Yeah.
And it was really sad because when the officials were calling out the penalties and stuff like that, you could if you watched, you could hear the crowd, you could hear the crowd booing and jeering and sneering, and then when they announced Naomi Osaka as the winner, it was, it was constant boos, and whether or not they were booing to the fact that she to her personally is, I think, beside the point. They were booing for this girl who was who's young, who's almost half the age of Serena Williams, I think. And and this is one of her greatest achievements, in life, winning an Open, and people are booing that. And again, whether regardless of whether they were not booing her personally, but booing the situation, that it's
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
She didn't.
As someone who who performs at the higher echelons within a sport, that should be the greatest moment of your life.
And let's set the record straight too, is that she outperformed Serena Williams hands down that. So it wasn't that she won on a technicality, because it may have been a little bit closer had Serena actually acted like a professional. But not only did she got outplayed, and then she got those penalties on top of that, which kind of handed the win to her opponent. But what was it? I was watching the Michael Knowles show yesterday, and he kind of compared Serena Williams to Hillary Clinton being a sore loser. It's it couldn't possibly be me. It's all you. It's the referee. It's everyone else. And it's well, no. You just you didn't have the goods today, and then you on top of that you were cheating and then throwing a tantrum. What did you expect?
Yeah, and even what was it? Her coach even admitted it. You're just yeah, I'll send you your signals.
And I assume, and when it comes to sports too, I understand that sometimes, if you're not pushing the limits of the rules to assure victory, you aren't trying hard enough. Was it NASCAR is kind of big on that. It's they'll bend the rules as far as possible, not to the breaking point, but they'll push everything to the limits and maybe get called on. They'll have 20 infractions and maybe only get called on maybe half of them, and it's like, okay, well, we've gained an advantage on this side of the car that over the competition, and that's normal practice. And I assume it's probably the same for tennis too, where there's probably some sort of secret secret squirrel handshakes going on between the coaches and players. But the fact is, like, when you get caught, it's like, okay, well, yep, we got caught. There we go. It's a penalty. And her coach was smart enough. It's like, yeah, we did that, and we got caught for it this time. That's fine.
Right. It's not like they're saying like you made this infraction, so you are now ousted from like I don't know, whatever professional organization that tennis falls under. Um, I don't think. I mean, other than Serena getting deducted those points, I don't think there was like they weren't calling for her disqualification from like ever playing the game, or or from that
it wasn't
that
like
coach or that coach ever like coaching again or whatever. It's just like
right.
you just broke the rules within the game, within the set parameters, within the set guidelines of that game. You broke the rules, and so you have to suffer the consequences.
Exactly. And it's just it's just a really, it's one of the low moments in sports where the fact that what should have been someone's highest moment was stripped from them because a champion decided to act like a child.
Right. Yeah, and I mean it kind of sickened me to hear like the audio like of the exchange between the referee and Williams, and like because she started bringing all these like irrelevant things into it.
She's like, I'm a mother.
Yeah, I'm a mother. I'm trying to set an example for my daughter. It's like, well, don't cheat. That'd be setting a
There
really good example for your daughter. Don't cheat. Or if something doesn't go your way, you don't smash your toys. That'll be a great example to set for your daughter to have dignity and grace when things don't go your way. That'd be a great example to set for your daughter, wouldn't it?
Right.
Right. And the supposition that like men don't get called out for their like infractions or whatever. John McEnroe, was the bad boy of tennis, and he constantly got penalized and constantly got called out for his antics.
Yeah. Well, and then of course she turned it into some like kind of sexist line where it's like, oh yeah, well men if I was a man, this wouldn't have happened. It's like, well, actually, yeah, it would, because those are actually the rules that are guideline in tennis. It's it's both the men and women's side that are there's no different rules. It's
right. Yeah.
It's kind of like the codes of conduct within the game, and you broke them. And it's true. Yeah, sure. There are some of the linesmen that are a little bit more lenient on certain things, but this particular one is known to be pretty strict. And so he's kind of like, yeah, you broke the rule, so here's your penalty. Deal with it.
Right. I mean, yeah. If anything, he was treating. I mean, if anything, it's. Isn't that like the feminist goal? To be treated like just to be treated just as a man. If a man did this, if a man did the same thing and got caught doing it, then he would receive the same treatment.
Yeah. But it's sad that the the audience essentially booed the event, so the person that won couldn't actually like celebrate in a good way. And
yeah, I mean
that.
Well, like the headline shouldn't have read, "Oh, Serena Williams gets robbed of her win" or whatever. It should have been like, "Oh, first time U.S. Open competitor wins against champion.
Yeah, and that's and the thing is, and I'm not bashing Serena Williams' talent. She's probably the best female tennis player that
Right.
has
Yeah.
existed.
And she could both easily, handily, beat the shit out of us in tennis.
Yeah, there's
even despite being men.
Oh yeah, she could beat definitely beat me, but then again, I suck at tennis, so it's.
Yeah, but then like she tried. Yeah, but then I would invoke my cripple privilege.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that one, right? You got me.
You like that?
I did. But yeah, it's just kind of. I just thought the whole thing was just kind of a sad display, and I not that I had a ton of respect for Serena anyways, because she's kind of while she is been one that has always just kind of relied on her talent to get by, and it's kind of like, well, I kind of don't feel like playing today, so she'll like crap out, and she'll kind of give up, and whereas like a lot of people that are at that side, who don't have, even that aren't even on her level talent wise, and they try that, but they try their best and they do well. But then she's like, oh well, you know what, I'm gonna try today, and then she ends up beating them all. It's kind of a she's talking about setting all this good example for her kid and stuff like that. Well, she hasn't really done that.
Yeah.
And and then this display, I've completely lost whatever respect I did have for her, which was very little to begin with. But yeah, she's pretty awful. It's a.
I mean, as a person, not as an athlete.
Yeah.
I guess, is that everything you wanted to say?
That's everything that I had to say about the U.S. Open. I didn't watch any of the other like the men's side or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, although I think like one of those kind of like exhibition games that they do where they pit like the men against the women. I forget. Serena did play. I forget what rank he was. He wasn't like that. He wasn't like a superstar, but he was still good, like a guy. And like I think the story goes like he had like a really big breakfast. He didn't like really train that hard. Had like smoked 2 cigarettes, and then went on the court and like beat her.
Yep.
Like,
and he was like ranked
handily,
like 200 or 300.
She didn't even make one point off him.
Yeah, and he was ranked like number like 200 or 300 or something like that.
Yeah. And it was funny because like then like in a like a post interview whatever, she like admitted it's like, yeah, like I was doing things that like if I did it to a woman, like I would have won. But like like there's like one serve that they do like where like women like at her like caliber, they wouldn't have been able to like reach the ball in time, but this guy like handily like got it and returned the serve and
right,
basically smoked her.
It's just, and that's not to say that like that like she or other women in on the female side of sports that they aren't good or not talented. Like,
right, no one's saying that.
Now Serena would probably beat you or me because we don't play tennis. Right. Well, you don't have any hands, so you're not playing tennis.
I would then invoke my crippled privilege and I would win by default.
And then you already win, so
yeah, so yeah, she beat you, but not me.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect to win against someone like Serena Williams, or same thing with remember like when Michelle Wie was big and she was trying to compete against the men. It's like it wasn't that she was a bad golfer; the men were better than her. But when Michelle Wie went over to the women's side of golf, she did fine.
Exactly.
Um, uh, and I think maybe like the one sport where it is might somewhat equalized is maybe in the racing world, but even then, the guys
Oh,
have always outperformed the women.
you know what? One sport it is really equalized,
What?
and oftentimes women actually do better than men.
What's that?
Shooting.
Like guns or
Yeah, guns.
arrows? Damn, I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
I
Because
know.
I
Who
see,
would have
I've
thought?
heard swimming is one where long distance swimming is where sometimes women do a little bit better than men.
I could see that because their muscle to fat ratio is a little bit more on the fat side, which makes them.
Yeah, Joyce consistently kicks my ass in swimming races.
Yeah, so there you go.
But
I mean, kind of an
no, I didn't
anecdote,
know.
but
I did not know that they have been. Well, I know like there's some good like marksmen and stuff, but I didn't know that they were
yeah,
on
like
average
shooting
better.
competitions, like yeah, women like sometimes like often are are ranked higher than men.
Yeah.
So you hear that, ladies? Put down the tennis racket, pick up the gat.